Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're starting a brand new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto Got Harem and Pregnant Yugao, Kushina, Mikoto Part 1. If you enjoy this story, please like the video, subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you want a part 2. Now, let's begin the fanfic. It's a bright and sunny day on the forest a few miles away from Konohagakure. The camera shows the quiet, lush forest. The sun radiating a warm feeling when suddenly an orange blur is seen dashing through the treetops. This blur reveals itself to be the one and only Naruto Uzumaki. The loud-mouthed, good-natured knuckle-headed ninja known throughout Konoha. He has recently completed a mission given to him by Lady Tsunade, the 5th Hokage, which required him to head to Sunagakure to deliver a message to his friend Gaara, who was the cage of the village. Man, I can't believe that guy became the cage. I have some serious catching up to do. Naruto thought in frustration. The blonde bastard continues hopping through the trees when suddenly he comes across a part of the forest that looked like it was destroyed by a powerful hurricane. What the happened here? He mumbled. His thoughts were interrupted when he hears someone in pain. Who is that? Naruto then hops in the direction where the seemed to come from and reaches the source. He saw someone pinned on the ground below by several trees. Gah, that Ing Suna. I'll take that fan of hers and shove up her wrinkly. The unknown person shouts in obvious frustration as they struggle more. Naruto squints his eyes to take a better look at the person, making out her red hair, familiar brown eyes. He goes wide-eyed when he realizes who it is. The person is none other than Tayuya from the Sound 4. Just a few days ago she got into a fight with Shikamaru and Tamari, and well, that didn't end well for her. Oh, it's her, that girl, she helped kill the old man. Naruto whispered to himself. Despite the fact that he was in the presence of an enemy kunoichi, he just couldn't bear to see her in pain or even leave her to die like this. It wasn't something Naruto would do. He had the most kindest heart in all of the elemental nations. I can't leave her out here like this, she'll die. Tayuya, growing more frustrated by the minute, growls in sheer anger before shouting at the top of her lungs. When I get my hands on that shadow prick and fan bitch there so Ed. Just then she hears what sounds like someone landing a few feet in front of her and poking her head up to look at the source of the noise. She is greeted by a face she hoped she'd never have to see again after their first encounter a few years ago. Beside her was Naruto, or shithead, as she liked to call him. The guy with that god-awful orange jumpsuit was now donning a black and orange jumpsuit, which she thought was even worse. Oh, Naruto definitely remembered their encounter a few years back. It was when Otogakure was reportedly sending their shinobi into Fire Country after their first failed attack on Konoha during the Chunin exams. He, Sasuke, Sakura and Kakashi were sent to investigate these claims, and they happened to come across the Sound 4. Let's just say Tayuya decided to take Naruto on, and that's how they pretty much met. Oh god, what the air you doing here, you pin? Tayuya shouted in a mix of annoyance and anger. Hearing the girl's language was enough to get a smirk out of Naruto. Well, looky here, it's that Oto Kunoichi from a few years back. So how's it going? Naruto asked with a mischievous grin. Tayuya only growled in response before spitting right in his face. What do you think, bump? I'm trapped under all these damn trees. Oh well, that's unfortunate, but listen, what's your name? Naruto said with a sweat drop. None of your business, you whisker-marked bastard. What are you even doing here anyway? Come to rape a poor defenseless girl, huh? Tayuya snarled. Naruto rubbed his head, giving out small laugh. Well, no actually. I know you're an enemy and all, but just the sight of you helpless here is sickening, so I came to help you get out. Tayuya was shocked to hear this. Never in her 16 years of living has anyone ever offered to help her, well besides Orochimaru when he found her, but that bastard ed her life up even more. Confused as to why an enemy ninja like Naruto would help her, she had to ask. Why the would you want to help me? I was there when that snake pedo killed your precious Hokage, dumbshit. Enemy or not, I still can't leave anyone out here to die like this. Also, You're not at fault here. It was Orochimaru who was directly responsible for his death, so he's the enemy in my eyes. Not you, Naruto said as he produces several shadow clones to help. Hey, I didn't ask for your help. As a matter of fact, you should kill me anyway. I'd rather be stabbed to death than be saved by anyone, let alone a Konoha ninja. Her words, however, did not get through the Naruto as he and his clones continue removing the trees from her. After a few minutes, Yuya was free, although her legs were a bit mangled. Seeing this, Naruto shook his head in disgust before grabbing a canteen from his sash and handing it to the Oto Kunoichi. You're probably thirsty. Here, have some water, he said with a warm smile. No way. Don't think I'm grateful. With all the help you're giving me, Orochimaru would come for me eventually, Yuya said with a growl. Naruto then gave her a stern look. Putting the canteen down, he places both his hands on her shoulders and looks her in the eye. Alright, you know what? You really think that pedophile really cares about you? What has he ever done for you beside make you a tool for battle? Answer that question. Also, how long were you trapped here? By the looks of it, I wager a few days, maybe 3 at most. Has anyone come for you at all? The blonde said in a smartass tone. Yuya growled in frustration when she realized that the blonde was right. Even though she wanted to strangle, the blonde was actually taking in his words. Yeah, sure, Orochimaru found her when she was a young girl and took her in, but he only took her in to make her a tool for war. How did she not realize this sooner? Giving him her usual scowl, she decided to accept the blonde's help. Fine, give me that water. You piece of shit. Naruto complies and hands her his canteen, which she downed vigorously. Oh damn, take it easy. She drinks the last of the water and gives out a huge burp that sees several spit shoot out of her mouth and land on Naruto's face. Hey, what the hell? Naruto shouted in disgust as he wipes his face off. Well, you were in the way, dumbass. Now take your canteen back before I shove it up your, Yuya said with a chuckle. As he goes to put his canteen in his sash, Naruto was thinking about what he should do now that she was free from her ordeal. Noticing Yuya wince in pain and clutching her legs, he decided it would be best to take her back to Konohagakure with him and see if Lady Tsunade would be willing to help her. Hey, what the is it? Since it seems that Orochimaru basically abandoned you, so how about I take you back to Konoha with me? Naruto said, sporting his signature foxy grin. Punch. Ow, what the? You think they'll let me in after what happened? My village and Sunagakure invaded your shitty village, don't you remember? Yuya sneered. Felt so nice to kill some of your people too. Naruto rubs his cheeks to ease the pain before he just gives her another one of his sincere looks. Look, that's the past, alright. You have nowhere to go, so the best thing I can do for you is take you to Konoha. You need medical attention too, and the 5th Hokage will be willing to help if you explain your situation to her. Another thought crossed his mind, and with a snap of his fingers he takes a kunai out from its pouch, much to the shock of Yuya. What the air you gonna do with that? You know what, just kill me. The kunoichi shouted. She closes her eyes waiting for the pain but opens them as soon as she felt a slight pressure on her forehead. There, Naruto said, nodding in satisfaction. What did you do? Yuya asked in confusion. Well, since you've been abandoned by Orochimaru, I guess that means you can't go back to Otogakure, so I scratched out the symbol on your headband. I mean, why not? You do know what that means, right? No shit. It means that you cut off ties and are no longer allied with whatever village you're from. She answered. Yep. From now on you're no longer an Otogakure kunoichi. Anyway, let's get going, Naruto declared. Yuya only looks at him in utter confusion. Here before her was a ninja that she fought with a few years back and pretty much kicked his ass. Sure, he was offering help, but she is still wary. Then again, no guy had ever shown great concern for her before. She saw it in the blonde's eyes too. Real, genuine concern for her well-being. Knowing that he would not leave, she sighs in defeat. Fine, I accept your help, shitface. Now give me a piggyback ride then, she ordered. Smirking, Naruto nods before gently scooping her up and putting her on his back. Watch where you put those ugly hands of yours, don't cop a feel. I'm not a pervert, Naruto said before he takes off. Konoha main gate. Azumo and Katetsu were bored out of their minds because for them it was another boring, shitty day at gate guarding duty. Well, they're always on this duty, so by this point they really didn't give a flying shit. They were too busy staring off into space when suddenly they spot a hint of orange walking through the main gate. Hey, is that Naruto? Guess he's back from Sunagaker. Azumo inquired. Yeah, but who's he carrying? Katetsu asked. Naruto sees them staring at him with suggestive smirks on their faces. What the hell are you guys looking at? So, Naruto has finally found himself a girlfriend. I'm so proud of you. Azumo said, crying anime-style tears. A tick mark forms onto Yuya's head. What? I'm not his girlfriend, she screams before punching him away into the sky. Katetsu becomes still in fear before running back to take his seat at the guarding station as Naruto heads off with Yuya to see Tsunade at the office and/or hospital. When they arrived and met Lady Tsunade, Naruto had explained Yuya's predicament to her, and normally Tsunade would not help an enemy ninja, especially after the attack on their village during the Chunin exams. But when she heard that Yuya was a pawn and tool of Orochimaru, she decided to give the redhead a chance and heal her busted legs. 5-month time skip. It's been over 5 months since Yuya was founded by Naruto in the forest, and since then Tsunade had made the former Oto Kunoichi a brand new Chunin of Konoha, and despite her harsh attitude and foul mouth, the blonde had become very attracted and attached to her. After the meeting with Tsunade, she began living with Naruto for her own protection, and ever since they've been assigned missions together and were on their way home from just completing one in the Land of Iron. Making their way through the village, they then head into the Hokage Tower to report their success and get the proper pay of an A- rank mission. They then spent over an hour conversating with the Sannin, and one topic made Naruto cringe. Hell, since Naruto already knew who his parents were, Tsunade told Naruto about the Clan Restoration Act and asked him if he was interested in it. He was disgusted, however, at the thought of being Konoha's biggest man whore. Besides, he already had his eyes set on Yuya anyway, so he had to say no. The two of them shunshin out of the Hokage Tower. Hey, shithead, let's just head on home, I'm too tired to even do any more shit. Yuya said, rubbing her legs. Sure, that assassination took a lot out of us, so, why not? Naruto said as they leap over houses back to their home. Naruto and Yuya's apartment. I'll go grab some food. Want me to make anything, you fast-eating prick? Yuya asked. Nah, I'm good, so go ahead and make yourself something nice. I'll go put a movie on and we can relax for the evening. Naruto responded. Well, suit yourself. Yuya laughed. Naruto walks over to the TV in the living room and looks through his movie pile. After finding the one he wanted to watch, he puts it in the Blu-ray player and takes a seat on the couch. Meanwhile, Yuya is seen taking out some cooking material and sets them on the counter before she halts her activities and takes a peek at Naruto. Again, he's the only person, specifically a boy, that ever treated her with kindness, and the past 5 months with him was easily the best in her life. Yeah, she acted like a total bitch to him, but deep down she really appreciated him. At this point she felt butterflies in her stomach every time she looked at him, and this feeling was completely new to her, and when she asked Lady Tsunade about it she turned really red. Learning from the Sannin that this feeling was infatuation, maybe even love, she tried to deny it. She continues looking at Naruto and took in his appearance. She admits it, he was hot as. At 5 feet 11 inches he was muscular, had a well-defined six-pack, nice biceps and that unruly hair, blue eyes and that smile all but made her heart melt. Alright, I ain't like that needle, Ed. She screams frantically in her head, he probably doesn't have a needle at all, I wouldn't mind finding out right now. Walking over to join Naruto, she took a seat next to him on the couch. She swore she saw out of the corner of her eye him giving her a type of look. Now for Naruto, he was feeling something for the red-haired Kunoichi. In spite of that atrocious mouth of hers, he couldn't get over her appearance. She stood at 5 feet 2 inches, had a lovely curved figure, brown eyes that made Naruto's heart skip a beat every time he had the chance to look at them. Her C-cup were easily his favorite part. Every moment he spent with her he really wanted to feel them, but he dared not ask her. He admitted to himself that she was way better than Sakura. That pink banshee never returned his feelings, so he gave up on her a while ago. Plus Tayuya's red hair was way better than pink. Her new look too made her look even whiter than most of the girls he knew. Her usual outfit now consists of the standard Konoha Chunin vest, black OTK socks with jean shorts and a Konoha bandana. 15 minutes into the movie, Tayuya hadn't noticed that her hand had found its way atop of Naruto's. Even though he noticed it, he didn't move it away at all and enjoyed the feeling. Naruto's hand would move as if it had a mind of its own, and in no time flat their hands were intertwined. This caused both of them to blush beyond the normal level, and they both released their grip. They both were frantically apologizing to one another for the awkwardness. "Hey you perv. Don't do that again," Tayuya shouted. "You started it." Naruto shot back. Sighing, Tayuya didn't really feel like arguing because she wanted to tell Naruto how she felt. Reaching for his hand with both of hers, she gets a good grip on it and looks into his eyes. "Shithead, there's something I want to say to you," she said with a blush forming on her face. What is it, Tayuya?" Naruto said nervously. "I'm sorry for my attitude, the name calling, and well, just my foul mouth in general. I've never even once thanked you for saving me from that mess in the forest, and I'm going to say it now, thank you, Naruto," she said with her blush getting even more noticeable. Yeah, no problem." Naruto chuckled. "Wait. You called me by name." "Damn right I did. Anyway, there's something else I want to say to you, Naruto. These past 5 months have been the best of my life. Here a former enemy of yours, was in distress, and you helped me despite my past actions. Every moment spent with you was great, and as time went on I started to feel something for you." Naruto was listening intently, a look of shock mixed with happiness on his face. Here was the biggest bitch of a girl seemingly confessing her love for him. "I asked Lady Tsunade what this feeling was because I've never felt it before in my life. She told me it was love, Naruto. I love you with all my heart. You're the only one who helped me in my hour of need, and you've put up with my bitchy attitude without losing your cool." Before she could finish, Naruto had planted his lips onto hers with as much passion as he can muster. Taking by surprise, Tayuya was blushing at overload. She regained her bearing and returned the kiss. This one simple kiss quickly escalated into an intense make-out session, as the two were now tongue wrestling for dominance. Tayuya would be the winner, however, much to Naruto's chagrin. The two then pull apart, gasping loudly for air. "I love you too, Tayuya-chan," Naruto whispered in her ear. "Let the begin." As they continued to breath for air, the two of them hadn't noticed their arousal. Tayuya looked down and saw a bulge slowly forming under Naruto's pants. Letting her instincts guide her, she then placed her hand on Naruto's growing erection, causing the blonde to jump at the feeling. Naruto smirks at his new lover's boldness. "Oh, is Tayuya-chan eager to begin already?" Naruto cooed. Without warning, Naruto begins taking his shirt off, and the sight was enough to quickly make Tayuya's to become completely drenched. Seeing the redhead gawking over his muscles, he reaches downwards and takes both her hands into his and gently places them on his muscular body. What happened next only caused Tayuya's libido to go off the roof. He gently moves her hand down his body, allowing her fingertips to feel his glorious abs. "Oh god, Naruto, just wreck me already." Tayuya ed. "If you're so eager." He chuckled before taking her pants and shirt off, leaving her in only her bra and panties. Naruto takes a look at her panties and notices the massive wet spot on it. Reaching down, he forcibly removes it and places it on his nose. Taking a big whiff of it, he sighs in content. The smell being the best thing he'd ever had the fortune of smelling, and made his erection even harder. He even thought it was so much better smelling than ramen. "Damn, her smells great. I wonder how it tastes like," he thought to himself before tossing it aside. He takes a moment to gaze at her moist and saw that it was really smooth and looked super tight and clean shaven. He then lowers his head down and begins assaulting her wet folds with the utmost efficiency. Taken by the sudden attack on her moist slit, Yuya let out a loud, letting her know that he was pleasing her. Naruto viciously away at his lovers like a rabid animal before he stops for a moment, much to the disappointment of Yuya. "Why the did you? Ah!" she squealed as Naruto fed her with his tongue. Noting her reaction, he then inserts a finger into her vaginal opening and pumps it in and out roughly while placing his mouth on her and ing on it. Oh god, Naruto. That feels so good, please don't stop, ah!" she screamed in pure bliss as he increased the pace of his finger banging. Soon enough the pleasure would be too much for her as she felt something building up in her lower region. Placing her hands on his head, she practically shoved him deeper into her, and that was enough to get what Naruto was waiting for. "In Naruto!" she screamed at the top of her lungs as she experienced her very first and very powerful orgasm, her mouth now opened in a silent scream. Her sprayed out a large amount of her juices, coating the blonde's face in it, making him appear as if he just exited the shower. Opening his mouth wide, he allowed the juices to spray into his mouth. After a few minutes, Yuya's orgasm had died down and she was left catching her breath and a blushing mess. Looking up at Naruto, she saw him ing his fingers slowly, each one covered in her juice. Ing on his pinky, he then uses his pointer finger to lap up what remained of her juices off her folds and that up as well. "Damn, your vagina and juices taste so good, Yuya. So, how did I do?" he asked. That was amazing, Naruto-kun." She got out between pants. "I aim to please," Naruto said, giving her his trademark grin. Regaining her composure, she gets up and takes his hand before leading them to the room they shared. As soon as they entered, she shoved him hard onto the back where he was laying on his back. Taking off her bra, she tosses it aside before getting on the bed. She then gets on all fours. "Damn, that's hot," Naruto said, watching the redhead slowly crawl up to him and undoing his belt. With a very forceful pull, she literally rips Naruto's pants off of him, and the size of the bulge made her eyes bulge out of her sockets. The moment she pulled his pants down, she was struck right on the face with what she assumed had to be the biggest ever attached to a man. "What the actual? He's huge as," she thought with a blush on her face. "You can get a better look at it if you'd like, Taiyu-chan," Naruto said in a husky voice. Totally caught off guard, Yuya managed to regain her bearing. The sight before her made her gush out even more liquids, moistening her even more. The sheer size and girth of Naruto's was unbelievable. Holy shit. That thing is like 17 inches long and 4 inches wide. Those veins. Hell, his ballsack looks like it's swollen. Damn shithead, you're a stud. I take it back, you're not a needle ed. Yuya thought, transfixed on the sight, her mouth watering and her blush only increasing. Naruto noticed that she was just staring at it. Was it turning her off? "Taiyu-chan, is something wrong?" he asked nervously. Shaking her head, she her lips before looking at her lover. "Sorry, Naruto-kun, I was just surprised as all. I mean, holy shit, you have a that looks like it belongs on a Tyrannosaurus, for piss sake." Smirking at her comment, Naruto couldn't help but give out a light laugh. "Well, I know you like playing the flute, right? So how about you play with my flute like the expert you are, since you're so good at blowing?" Naruto said while squeezing her titties, causing her to give off light s. Gulping and her lips, she reaches for the ramming rod of and swirls her tongue around the bulbous glands before giving a loving and passionate kiss, earning a from her lover. Hearing her lover's only made her libido go up exponentially, and then sticks her tongue out and puts it into his pee hole. She then places both her hands on the girthy man meat and proceeds to give him a hand job while moving her fingers as if she really was playing her flute. The sudden warm intrusion of his urethra and hand job made Naruto scrunch his face up in pleasure. "Oh damn, Taiyu-chan." Hearing her lover being pleasure, Yuya then withdraws her tongue and gulping one more time, she opens her mouth as wide as she could and begins to engulf the massive. The warm feeling surrounding his made Naruto even louder. Yuya then begins to bob her head at a furious pace. Each time she bobbed her head down, more of his massive ramrod of a After a few minutes she managed to envelop over 14 inches of his massive PP, with 8 of that being deep-throated. Oh damn. Tayuya, your throat feels great. So warm and tight. Just let me the shit out of it. HMPH. Wha triple A you doin'? She muffled in surprise. Tayuya, I'm gonna the shit out of your throat, so here, let me take charge. Naruto said with his trademark grin. Surprised at his sudden outburst, she places her hands onto the bed to balance herself, and Naruto lifts her head off his massive. It took a while though, as she is already deep-throating a large portion of it, but soon she was left with only the head of his in between her lips. Holding his breath and summoning all the strength he could muster, he slams her pretty little head down with so much force that all 17 inches of his meat scepter went straight down her gullet, much to her pleasure though. Tayuya then began humming, the sheer vibrations making him groan at the extreme pleasure. Oh yeah, that feels good, he shouted before he raised her head up again and slamming her head down, each movement spearing his massive down her throat and into her stomach. After about 20 minutes of throating his red-haired lover, he was approaching his climax. Holy shit, here it comes, Taiyu-chan. He got out between pants, his face scrunching up in pure bliss as he felt his cum making its way from his ball sack and through his shaft. With her lover's orgasm imminent, she pulls the prick out of her throat and leaves only the head in her mouth. She proceeds to in it to get the cum she so desperately desired. Ah God, I'm coming, he shouted just as he shot a literal 1 gallon's worth of his spunk into her mouth, making her cheeks puff out at the force of his ejaculate. She swallows it all in one gulp, but before she can open her mouth to breath, another load erupts into her needy mouth, filling it to capacity once more. Tayuya ed as she swallows every drop of it before Naruto pulls out and rubs his, prompting himself to ejaculate more, and soon enough 2 more gallons of cum covers up her succulent C-cup-sized boobies in her face. Oh, Naruto ed as his orgasm died down. Gasping at the sheer amount of cream all over her boobies and face, she then uses both her hands to take literal handfuls of baby-making material, proceeds to hand-feed herself until she was cleaned up completely. Wow, Naruto, that tasted like heaven, she said as she burps, making her place both hands on her mouth, blushing. Oops, excuse me. She gasps in surprise when she notices that Naruto's battering ramrod of a was still rock hard. What the? You came and that beast is still hard. Oh yeah, what can I say? Since it's still hard, want to relieve it, Taiyu-chan. I still have enough energy left to give you a really good pounding. Naruto chuckled. Okay then, Tayuya said as she goes to lay down on her back with her head resting on the pillows. Prove how much you love me by my tight and needy little with that huge of yours until you spray a lot of cum into my womb and get me pregnant. Oh, I plan to. Naruto smirked before going over to lay atop his lover. They engage in a passionate kiss before Naruto positions his veiny prick at the tip of her orifice. Naruto, just a second. Tayuya spoke softly. What's up, Taiyu-chan? Naruto asked. Just, please be gentle, it's my first time, she said in a shaky voice. Smiling, Naruto places a hand on her cheek and gives her a loving kiss. Don't worry, I'll be gentle. With that, he then gently slides his enormous organ into her vagina. The sheer pleasure causes Tayuya to whimper in pain as she felt like his was splitting her in two. Eventually he felt her hymen. Looking at his beloved Taiyu-chan, she gives him a nod and he then pushes 3 more inches of his into her, breaking her hymen. Tayuya whimpered in pain, and before Naruto could ask if she was okay, she puts a finger on his mouth. Just keep going, Naruto-kun, she ordered. Nodding, Naruto pushes 2 more inches into her depths, making her loud. The sheer pleasure that followed the pain was enough to drive her crazy, deciding that being slow and gentle wasn't going to happen because she needed that pounding and she needed it now. Gah, being gentle, I want you to just shove that in me and just pound me into oblivion, shithead. Tayuya shouted in desperation. Alright then. Don't complain to me later when you're bow-legged, you naughty girl, chuckled the blonde, horse-ed bastard. Grasping his with both hands, he takes a deep breath before he shoves his entire 17-incher straight into her depths, the sheer tightness making him groan in pleasure. Holy FF. Tayuya screamed, the feeling of being so filled by the massive making her whimper a bit. Just me Naruto. My tight you giant bastard. Thought you'd never ask. Get ready because I'm going to reshaping your and you so hard I put you in a wheelchair. Naruto grinned before withdrawing his entire length from her. Oh, that's going to be addicting. Tayuya got out between s. Before she could speak more, Naruto shoves with all his might and spears his entire length into her, penetrating her cervix and entering her womb. Shit. It feels like you've speared my womb, shithead. Stop being slow and just me really fast and hard, damn it. Tayuya ordered. Naruto, smirking at his lover's desperation, and begins slamming into her at such a fast pace that the whole bed was shaking. Oh, that feels so good. That's right. Pound that cunt until it breaks. Split me in two. She ed out loud in pure bliss as an orgasm hits her. Feeling his lover's spray a water hose of juice, this caused Naruto to pick up the pace, her at a speed that made Might Guy and Rock Lee look like snails. That's right. Me like that, you T-Rex ed bastard. Oh god. She was taken by surprise when Naruto sheathed his from her and suddenly flipped her over and forced her face into the pillow. Tayuya decided she liked the new position and reached backwards with her hands and proceeded to spread her cheeks, giving Naruto a pleasurable view of both her puckered anus and her wet vaginal opening. Hurry up and me shithead, who said you could stop? She shouted in the pillow, muffling her voice. Without a word, Naruto just slams his into her, getting a loud high-pitched squeal from her. Thrusting his entire length into her at such a furious pace he was practically thrusting her head into the bed frame. Tayuya opened her mouth to scream, but nothing came out as she was ed into oblivion. After about half an hour of slamming his lover senseless, Naruto felt his ballsack begin to boil from within, readying another massive load of cum. Oh shit, here it comes, Taiyu-chan. Get ready because you're gonna be filled. The blonde, spiky-haired bastard said through pants. Yes. Fill every nook and cranny of my. Shoot that cum inside me and give me a baby. She said as she goes through an earth-shattering orgasm that makes her whole body shake. Oh shit. Naruto shouted before he came to a halt. Feeling Tayuya's clamp down onto his and practically holding him in place, Naruto ed as he shot a massive load of baby-making sperm into her, spraying her womb white as snow. Oh my god, yes. Tayuya shouted as she relished in pleasure of Naruto's sperm entering her cervix and getting into her uterus. Pulling out, Naruto watched in glee as he saw his massive load of spunk spill out of her. Tayuya goes to sit on her back and sighs in disappointment, seeing a puddle of sperm under her. She and Naruto then use their fingers to scoop up the goo and gently place it at the entrance of her. They then insert their fingers together inside, making sure the sperm that leaked out stayed in. Naruto then collapses next to Tayuya, both a sweaty covered in juice mess. They then embrace each other and kiss passionately. Kami, that was something else, Naruto. Tayuya panted. Yeah, it was. Hope you liked it, Taiyu-chan. Naruto said, placing a hand on his lover's cheek. I didn't like it, shithead. I loved it, she said before she felt a minor tingling sensation in her belly. Smiling with a massive blush, she then takes one of his hands and placing it on her belly. I can't wait. Me too, Taiyu-chan. Me too, heh. He chuckled. You know, Naruto, this is the first step in rebuilding your mother's clan, and quite frankly I don't mind you knocking up some other girls and making them your personal cum dumps. Tayuya said with a mischievous smirk. You sure? Naruto asked, confused. Receiving a nod, he smiles at her. Okay fine, but remember I won't stop ing the shit out of you when we get more girls. I'm happy my first time was with you, Taiyu-chan. I'm happy my first time was with you, Naru-kun. They both smile hearing the other say those words at the same time. They then give each other one last passionate kiss on the lips before the two worn-out lovers fall into a deep sleep. Just then a shadow hides away from view by the window. The figure is revealed to be a female Anbu with a cat mask and long purple hair. Though we can't see it, the person was blushing furiously. She was sent by Lady Tsunade to basically threaten the blonde into accepting the CRA, but instead she stumbled upon a furious session. Jumping away from the apartment, she then heads back to Tsunade to report that Naruto is unavailable at the moment and to leave a message. Lady Tsunade's office. It's been a week since Naruto and Tayuya had confessed their feelings for each other, and since they took each other's virginity, and the two lovebirds couldn't be any happier and they were even more inseparable than before. Today was a sunny day in Konohagakure and we see Naruto and his beloved Tayuya walking into the village. We see them headed towards the Hokage's office to report in for another completed mission. This time it was AC ranked 1 to deliver several Iwagakure citizens safely back to the land of Earth. Upon entering the Konoha main gate, what better way to celebrate another completed mission by eating at Ichiraku's together? Well, after they report to Lady Tsunade first and get that paycheck. The two of them walk up to the door and knock on it together. Come in, Tsunade said from the other side, and the two comply. Hey Ba-chan, me and Taiyu-chan came here to report that the mission was successful and there were no problems. Naruto said, smiling. Great, here's your page. Wait, did you just call Tayuya what I think you called her? Tsunade questioned with raised eyebrows. The blonde and redhead blushed furiously, knowing that there wouldn't any point in hiding the relationship. They both sighed and explained everything to the Sanin. Tsunade couldn't help but smile at this. Ah, young love, I hope you two used protection, she said with a wink, earning more blushes from the couple. On the sidelines, however, Shizune was crazy jealous of Tayuya. Despite being 31 years old, she had a crush on Naruto. C-C, congrats you two. She stuttered with eyes closed. Thanks Shizune Ne-chan. Naruto shouted. Yeah, thanks Shizune. Tayuya said. The four of them then conversate for a half hour. When Tsunade was about to dismiss them, Naruto decided to tell Tsunade what he thought about the CRA. Despite that he'd be the biggest man whore in Konohagakure, that in the whole world, he gave it some thought and decided that having a big family wouldn't be too bad. Tsunade was just staring at Naruto with an eyebrow raised. Normally it would take a lot to get Naruto to listen to her or even change his damn mind. She then decided it would be better to flat out ask him why he was suddenly so interested in CRA. Naruto scratched his head before letting out a mischievous laugh before speaking. Well, after we had Tayuya told me she wouldn't mind sharing me with other women. So I guess we can have that CRA with me for my mother's sake. Turning to look at the redhead, Tsunade gave her an astonished look. Really now Tayuya, you want to share him with other women? She asked, earning a nod from the Chunin. Alright then, I'll have Shizune get the paperwork ready and I'll send an Anbu to retrieve you to start the process. Okay Naruto. That sounds like a plan. How long would it take to have CRA in effect? Naruto asked. Not long. If we rush through it, we'll have it all done by the end of the day. Oh, and that reminds me Naruto, I forgot to tell you that your father has an estate if you're interested in owning it. My dad had an estate. His dad has an estate. Of course, you blonde brat. It's the Namikaze estate located in the outskirts of the village. Perfect place to raise a huge family, you know. Tsunade laughed. So are you or not? Well, I don't think I'll take it right now, Ba-chan. Naruto said, getting a disappointed look from his girlfriend. Alright then, just let me know, okay? Tsunade said before shooing them away. Now I'll guess I'll be seeing you two later. However, I do have one thing to talk to Tayuya about, so Naruto, can you please wait outside? Oh fine then, Naruto said before making his exit. Half an hour later, the door to the office opens and Tayuya walks out with a seductive grin on her face. Seeing that grin, Naruto couldn't help but ask what Tsunade had talked to her about. Why that grin, Taiyu-chan? Oh, nothing. Just some dirty stories from Lady Tsunade's life is all. She said, waving him off. Oh, okay. Let's go get some ramen. The blonde declared. Ichiraku ramen stand. Oh man, Naruto-kun, this is some good shit. Tayuya exclaimed as she ravages her fifth bowl of ramen. Naruto was staring at his girlfriend in shock. They both got their orders at the same time, but before Naruto could even pick up chopsticks, Tayuya had already devoured hers. Damn, I thought I was a fast eater. He thought, sweat dropping. More old man. Tayuya said to Tuki. You got it. From the doorway leading to the back room of the shop, Ayame was staring at Naruto and Tayuya in pure jealousy. Ever since she met Naruto when they were just kids, she always liked him. Probably even more so than that Hinata girl he brought that one time. Hell, she noticed the Hyuga's shyness and stuttering from just being next to Naruto. Single quote exclamation mark. Naruto has someone else. Why didn't I make my move sooner? She thought. I wondered how our child would look like too. And all that time masturbating to his pictures too. Oh well, at least I can still do that. Damn, slow down Taiyu-chan. Naruto shouted to no avail. So after about an hour of trying to best each other to see who could eat more ramen and who could eat it faster, our couple paid for the meal, mostly Naruto since Tayuya makes him. They decided to head on home for the rest of the evening. The two of them then walk holding hands in silence. Tayuya turned to her boyfriend and whispered into his ear, you know Naruto, eating all that ramen got me so hot and bothered. So what do you say to a night of us just playing with each other? Naruto's meat scepter slowly started to become erect when suddenly a figure jumps in front of them. It was an Anbu with a cat mask and long purple hair. Sorry to interrupt, but Lady Tsunade had ordered me to retrieve Naruto this instance. She said in a stoic voice. Ah man, Ba-chan is always sending Anbu to retrieve me at the worst moments. Naruto said, annoyed. Don't worry sweetie, I'll be waiting at home. Tayuya said, winking at the Anbu. Turning to face the Anbu, the two of them begin walking towards the Hokage's office until they enter through a dark alley. Huh, what's up Anbu-san? Why are we going this way? Naruto questioned. Oh, it's a shortcut. The Anbu replied. Oh, I see. Naruto said before walking ahead of the Anbu. Bonk. Oof. Just then Naruto's world goes black as something hit him hard in the back of the head. Unknown person's apartment. We see the unconscious form of Naruto slowly open his eyes. Damn, that hurt. The blonde shouted before trying to sit up. He is suddenly pulled down and is once again laying on his back. What the? He shouted before looking up to where his hands were. What he saw made him shiver. His hands were bounded to the bed frame via chakra handcuffs. Okay, whose sick game is this? Looking down, he also noticed something. That something was that he was completely. Whoa, what is going on here? Am I in some jail or what? No Naruto, you're not in jail, just my room. A voice said. Recognizing that voice as the purple-haired Anbu, he couldn't help but get really annoyed. Okay Anbu-san, what the heck are you planning here? He asked, looking around the dimly lit room. Just then the same Anbu emerges from the shadows. She walks over to the wall to turn on her light, and what Naruto saw next baffled him. The room was filled with a load of BDSM material, from whips, chains sticking out of the wall, and some form of rack where it looks like a person would be tied and chained to. Oh shit, Naruto said before turning to face the Anbu. Just what are you doing? Why did you knock me out, jerk? The Anbu walks up to the bounded blonde and places a finger on her lips. Shish, everything will make sense in due time, Naruto. Let the begin. Before he could protest, the Anbu removes her cat mask, and what Naruto saw gave his ramrod an almost instantaneous hard-on. The Anbu's face was very attractive. She had brown eyes that seemed to have a look of sadness and longing in them. Seeing her tied victim's hard-on, she couldn't help but blush at the size of the beast, with her moistening instantly. Quickly regaining her composure, she clears her throat before speaking. Naruto, there's no need to call me Anbu-san. My name is Yugao Azuki, and I was ordered to do this by Lady Tsunade. She explained. Oh, that Ba-chan. Wait, do what with me, Anbu-sa? I mean Yugao-san, Naruto asked. Flashback to Tsunade's office. Naruto had just exited the office, leaving only Tsunade, Shizune and Tayuya. A fourth person suddenly shunshins into the room, and it is revealed to be the cat mask wearing Anbu. You called for me, Lady Tsunade? The Anbu asked. Ah, Neko, you've arrived. Very well then, let's talk about that. CRA and Naruto. Tsunade had explained in the next half hour her evil master plan, where she had notified Yuya and Neko that Naruto wishes to have the CRA enacted upon him. So in conclusion, I want Neko-chan here to Naruto and make that brat the biggest man whore in all the land. Tsunade said with the most evil smile she ever had. The thought of having so many nieces and nephews is, kind of why. Yuya said. It has been a while for me since Hayate's death. I'll go to him then, Lady Tsunade. Neko spoke softly. Very well then. Yuya, go and head to the ramen bar with Naruto and Neko will take him after you've finished, okay? Tsunade said. Shizune remained silent throughout the conversation. Since she was a virgin and never even kissed a man before, she thought that she should have a crack at Naruto as well. What about me, Lady Tsunade? Tsunade raised her eyebrow at the medic. Oh, is innocent little Shizune eager to get some of Naruto too? Isn't that sweet? The Sannin said, getting a blush from the medic. Yuya couldn't contain her laughter. PFT, as if Shizune can handle my man. WWW, what do you mean, Yuya? The blushing Shizune asked. Naruto, well, he's blessed. Yuya answered, blushing herself while twiddling her fingers. Oh, do tell us. Tsunade said curiously. Flashback end. I'll simplify it for you so even your knuckle-headed brain can understand. For the CRA, you are to pretty much bear children with many women to restore a clan, so I'm going to get knocked up by you. Got it? Yugao said sternly. Seeing the blonde stare at her with a deadpan expression, she elaborated. Lady Tsunade wants you to a lot of women and have lots of children. Naruto grimaced slightly at that. What about Yuya? We could have at least let her know first. Shesh. It's okay, Naruto, she is in on this too. Yugao reassured. She did say that having lots of nieces and nephews wouldn't be bad. Naruto's got even more hard hearing that. Well, Ba-chan wants Naruto to as much women as I please, and Yuya actually wants to go through with this as well. Then what are you waiting for, Yugao? Come get this. He said huskily. Yugao then proceeds to take off her vest and her pants, leaving her in her purple lingerie that matched her elegant hair. Naruto was amazed. Her figure was really curvy, she had a toned stomach, D-cup sized. Hot damn, he whistled. Yugao then walks over to the bed and takes Naruto's headband off her drawer. Straddling him, she then wraps it around his eyes, blindfolding them. Hey, what the heck? Naruto exclaimed. Settle down, Naruto, you'll like what I'll let you do next. Yugao said in a lust-filled voice. Oh yeah, what would that be? She then lowers her body where her mouth was right next to his ear. Take off my bra and panties with your teeth. She whispered in a tone that sent shivers down his spine. She then places her bra covered in front of Naruto's mouth, feeling the soft mounts pressing against his face. He then opens his mouth, sticking out his tongue, he then using it to pull in the laces, and after a few minutes of struggling he finally was able to get a nibble on them. Shaking his head side to side, he unlaces the bra and tosses it aside. Good boy, Naruto, now on to my soaked up panties. Yugao said before getting up and basically positioning her wet panties on Naruto's face. Naruto took a moment to take a nice whiff of the wet panties. Damn, Yugao, you smell great. Found it, he said before taking the lace into his mouth and undoing the knot, causing the wet panties to fall onto his face. Good boy, now let me take charge from now on. The Jonin said as she gets off of Naruto and moves over in between his legs. The massive meat scepter all hard for her. That's the most delicious looking thing I've ever seen. She thought in amazement. What are you going to do to me, Yugao? The blindfolded cuffed up blonde asked. Just be quiet and let me play with you. The Jonin said before reaching towards the ramrod of A and gently tracing the shaft with it from bottom to top. The tingling sensation caused Naruto to shiver at the ANBU's gentle touch. Shit, Yugao. Stop torturing me. I'll do what I feel like, Naruto. Yugao said before wrapping her fingers around his girth. My Naruto, I never expected the knuckle-headed ninja to be swinging around a log in his pants. Hope you don't mind me tasting it, and remember I'm in charge here, so call me Mistress Neko now instead of by name, do you understand? Why yes, Mistress Neko. Naruto shouted in distress. Yugao then opens her mouth and slowly inserts the meat scepter inside her warm mouth. The sheer wetness and tightness of it making Naruto groan loud. The groan only made Yugao more eager and she wraps her other hand around the and furiously blows him while giving him a rough hand job. The sound of his pre-cum sloshing in Yugao's hand. Oh shit, Mistress Neko, you're amazing. Naruto got out between pants. Yugao was pleased to know that she was pleasuring the blonde. Withdrawing the form her mouth, she then smothers it in between her, and just as she did with her hands and mouth, and bobs up and down at such a fast pace that the chunin was practically ing out loud. It would be about 10 minutes before Naruto felt the sensation of his testicles readying up a gallon's worth of cum. Oh shit. Mistress Neko. I'm about to cum. That's right, Naruto. Mistress Neko wants you to cum. Yugao said, picking up the pace, and in no time flat the blonde screamed out her name as he thrusted upwards. It took Yugao by surprise when the was shoved into her mouth and she got what she wanted. The second Naruto's prick went into her mouth, a huge load of spermatozoa shot into her mouth, striking the back of her throat. The sheer force of the ejaculate filling her needy mouth to the rim, making her cheeks puffy. Naruto's then halted its launch and Yugao was left to relish in pleasure. So tasty, she thought as she swirled the cum in her mouth before swallowing it all. That was easily the best cum I've ever tasted, Naruto. Now I think you've suffered long enough. Yugao then lays on her back beside Naruto. She then reaches for his shoulder and flips him over where it would have him lay on her front side. Mistress Neko. What's going on? He asked, confused. What do you think? You're going to my brains out until you cum in my needy cunt and inseminate me. Understand? Or do you not want to? She said in a bossy manner. Also, the missionary position makes it easier for the man to impregnate the female. Before the blonde could speak up, Yugao had reached downwards and grasped his to guide it into her wet beyond belief orifice. The head just touching the opening. Grabbing her bed frame with both hands to brace herself for the upcoming onslaught, Yugao gave Naruto a kiss on the cheek. You may begin pounding me, slave. She whispered into his ear. Without warning, Naruto reared his hip back and thrusted his entire 17-incher so deep into Yugao's that he pierced her cervix and poked her uterus. Holy shit. Yugao squealed as Naruto began thrusting in and out of her. Oh god. So tight, Yugao. Naruto groaned. Damn right it's tight. I haven't had since Hayate. Yugao screamed in pleasure. Well, get ready, Yugao, because I'm going to reshape your and you so hard that you'll be limping for weeks. Naruto said before he began an all-out assault on the purple Jonin's tight needy with enough force that the bed creaked so much it might end up breaking. Oh Kami, I've never been filled like this before, Naruto. So much bigger and better than Hayate. Yes, Yugao got out between screams. Naruto continued to pound into the Anbu Kunoichi at an even faster pace that it looked like he was going to break through the floor of the room. The sound of their pelvises slamming against each other being the only noise besides Yugao's screams. Oh god, Naruto, please don't stop. Erg. Oh man, you're so tight. Naruto shouted as he began grinding his meat scepter in her. AWWWGGGGGHHHH. That feels so good. Oh Kami, I'm CCC coming. Yugao shouted at the top of her lungs as her began spraying juices at a high velocity. A literal torrent of liquid spraying all over Naruto's battering ram. Yugao's high-powered orgasm did it for Naruto, and soon enough he felt the semen within his testicles preparing to launch into his new lover's desperate womb. Here comes my baby making cum, Yugao. Take it. That cum with your until I can cum no more. Naruto screamed as he increased his pace. Yes. Get me pregnant, make me a mother. Yugao managed to get out before she came again all over his. That did it for Naruto. With one final and really powerful thrust he managed to get his straight through her cervix and the glands rubbed against her uterus. It's here. Take all my cum, Mistress Neko. Naruto screamed as he spurted out a massive load, at least 5 gallons worth of sperm that flooded the Jonin's needy uterus. The sheer force of his ejaculate making Yugao groans and in sheer pleasure. Oh Kami, yes, I can feel it. So warm. After a few more spurts, Yugao's vagina couldn't take in any more and the excess sperm began to seep out. His orgasm dying down, Naruto collapsed onto Yugao and both were breathing heavy from the intense. Yugao, can you undo these cuffs now? Naruto panted. Alright, but only because you were amazing. Yugao said before the cuffs vanished. Naruto then sat on his knees and goes to remove his headband and blinks several times. He looks downwards and sees the excess sperm puddle in front of Yugao. You want to take care of that? Looking over her belly, she spots the puddle and scoops up the extra sperm and inserts it back into her vagina and places a palm in front of the opening as if to prevent more from escaping. Naruto, come cuddle me, you stud. Yugao ordered. Naruto smiles and nods and goes to embrace his new lover, and soon exhaustion takes over and he falls asleep. Yugao places her head on his chest when she suddenly feels a tingly sensation in her belly. Smiling, she kisses Naruto gently on the cheeks before falling asleep herself. Life couldn't get any better for Naruto now, could it? We see the blonde teenager walking towards the hospital as if he had become Hokage. A couple days ago he had the CRA in place for him, so he was now free to pretty much get any girl he wants to bear a child with if they were willing, of course. Naruto didn't really mind one bit since it's for the sake of the Uzumaki clan. He did, however, have several crushes before Tayuya had come into his life, like Shizune, that psychotic snake Lady Anko, and Lady Tsunade herself. Oh man, the past few days have been the best in my life. Naruto said to himself as he walks up to the front desk. An Anbu had notified him that his yearly physical would occur in a few hours and to head to the hospital as soon as he could. Naruto was confused, however, since his physical was already a few months ago. He didn't complain, however, since Tsunade was most likely the one ordering this and would be the one to check him, and he had no qualms of arguing with the Sannin unless he wanted to be punched through a city block. He enters the hospital and checks in with the front desk clerk. Excuse me, Naruto Uzumaki coming to get my physical on orders from Lady Tsunade. Naruto said to the woman. Uzumaki, ah yes, you have a physical scheduled at approximately 1:30 p.m., go ahead and take a seat there please. The clerk said with a smile, pointing to something on a sheet of paper Naruto believes lists all upcoming appointments. Naruto then walks over to take a seat. If there was one thing he didn't want to get, it was an STD. He began to think about his decision to accept the CRA. Yeah, sure, he was in love with Tayuya and in a relationship with her, but since the redhead said she didn't mind sharing her man with other women, he just shrugged it off. Besides, what can go wrong? Yep, I totally don't mind at all, Naruto said to himself in glee. He had been sitting for about 20 minutes before he started getting bored. Grabbing some magazines from the shelf, he goes to read them to pass the time. I mean, it's typical of doctors to take a hell of a long time, so it. Another hour would pass and Naruto is seen sleeping on the chair, the magazine on his face with his body leaning back into the chair. Shizune-chan, you have such a tight hee. Naruto giggled in his sleep when suddenly someone taps on his shoulder, almost instantly waking up. It wasn't me, Naruto shouted in surprise, holding his hands into the air as if being caught. Naruto, it's me, a voice said behind him. Turning his head around, he spots his favorite medic in all the land. Standing before was Shizune-chan. Instead of her usual kimono, she was now wearing a nice nurse's outfit with the top partially unbuttoned, revealing a small bit of her double D. A white skirt that stopped at her upper thigh, revealing her nice and smooth legs with white OTK socks. To top it off, she sported a nurse cap on her head. Holy! Naruto whispered to himself, damn Shizune-chan, you look why. What did you say, Naruto-kun? Shizune asked, pretending not to hear his compliment. Oh, nothing. I didn't say anything, Naruto said, shaking his head to clear it of any perverted thoughts. So what are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be with Ba-chan? No, She told me to come and do the physical in her place since she wanted to blow through all that paperwork as quickly as she could. So here I am, the medic answered with a cheery tone. Oh, okay. Well, I've been waiting forever, so could we get this started? Naruto asked. Giggling, Shizune then instructs him to follow her to a room where she can conduct his physical. However, Naruto would be unaware of what Shizune was really there for, besides the physical that is. After walking down the hallway, Shizune stops in front of a door and opens it, allowing Naruto to enter first. With his back turned to her, she performs a series of hand seals and creates a genjutsu around the area so she can conduct that physical without anyone barging in or interrupt her. Entering the room, Shizune picks up the clipboard on the desk and proceeds to look over Naruto's medical record. Nodding, she then looks over to the blonde, seeing him sit on the examination table. Alright Naruto, for me to begin the physical, could you take your jacket and shirt off please? Shizune asked, getting a nod from the teen. Doing just that, Naruto swiftly takes his black and orange jacket before removing his white t-shirt. What Shizune saw made her moisten a bit. Oh, wow, Naruto-kun is so toned, she thought with a blush. Her blush wouldn't go unnoticed when Naruto looks her way. Shizune Ne-chan, why are you blushing? Aren't we going to do the physical? Hearing the blonde's voice snapped her out of her daze, and she goes to shake her head to regain her composure. Oh, sorry Naruto. Just a heat flash. Heat flash? It's not that hot in here, Shizune. Naruto said. Never mind, let's start the physical. Shizune giggled. After about 20 minutes of examining Naruto's physical makeup, conducting various tests such as the duck walk and other exercises, she walks over to the clipboard and writes stuff down. Alright Naruto, you have only gained 1 pound, and aside from that you seem very healthy as you were last time. The medic nin said with a smile. Great. So I take it I can go now, Shizune Ne-chan? Naruto asked sheepishly. Shizune then walks over to the blonde and shoves him back first onto the examination table and proceeds to straddle him. Whoa, Shizune Ne-chan, what are you doing? Naruto shouted with a massive blush on his face. Shizune then leans forward to where her face was inches away from Naruto's. Naruto, I know you have Tayuya and all, but you want to know something? I have a crush on you, cutie. She whispered into his ear seductively before giving him a kiss on the lips. Wah, Shizune Ne-chan likes me. Well, I'll be. Naruto thought before returning the kiss. Their small kiss would escalate into a very heated and intense battle saliva, and soon enough their tongues invade each other's mouths and get into a wrestling match for dominance. Damn, she's good at this, Naruto thought as he increases his efforts to try and defeat Shizune's warm tongue. Oh, he thinks he can win, huh? Well, not on my watch. Shizune then increases her effort as well, and after another few minutes of slurping and wrapping their tongues around each other, Shizune came out on top. Aw man, why do I always lose in tongue wrestling? The two then separate for air and look into each other's eyes. Both their faces sporting huge blushes. Wow, Shizune Ne-chan, that was awesome, right? Shizune finished. So how did I do for my first kiss, Naru-kun? Naruto gasped when she said that. Wait. I was your first kiss? He shouted. Why, yes. Shizune said shyly. Naruto smiled at her before planting a chaste kiss on each of her cheeks. You did amazing then for your first. So I take it you want to be part of my harem too, Ne-chan. Why do you think I'm doing this, you blonde cutie? She answered before taking off her top, and Naruto's eyes were transfixed at the glorious sight before him. He had never expected Shizune to have such big boobies. He watches her take her bra off, exposing the massive mounds in front of our blonde protagonist. Noticing the teenager staring at her bust, she gives him a nod, showing that it was okay for him to touch her if he pleases. Reaching up, he grabs them both and proceeds to squeeze them with so much force Shizune began out loud at the sensation. Oh Naruto, that feels so damn good. Shizune said as Naruto then begins to on them. Ah. Naruto, you're like you want to drink the milk out of them. She squealed. Naruto continues to the life out of her before he proceeds to nibble on them, earning more S from the medic nin. Then out of nowhere Naruto flips them over where he ends up on top. He then lowers his face downward and both their faces were mere centimeters from each other. Both of their faces sporting blushes that grew bigger by the second. Naruto-kun, Shizune whispered as she gives him a loving kiss on the lips. What's up Shizune? You know I really like you right? Not as a brother though. She said shyly. I can say the same thing Shizune. Naruto said with his signature grin. Shizune sighed before looking away. She already knew he was truly in love with Tayuya and she knows that he probably truly only likes her as a buddy at best. Noticing her disappointed look, Naruto places a finger on her chin and turned her head so that they were looking into each other's eyes. If you're worried about stealing me from Tayuya, you don't have to Shizune. You aren't at all and I do like you a lot. Not as much as Tayuya but I really do like you. If you don't want to do this it's okay with me. We can always be friends. Naruto reassured. Shizune felt tears forming in her eyes, she always liked Naruto. She opened her mouth to say something but was cut off. Besides Shizune, Tayuya has absolutely no problem sharing me with other women. You know this is for my mother's clan too and in the end me, you, her and whoever is part of this harem we'll live together in the Namikaze estate as one big happy family. Naruto spoke softly into her ear. Naruto, I'd love that, she said with a smile. The two then kiss on the lips once more. Naruto, being the bold blonde bastard that he is, then reaches downwards and proceeds to unzip her white skirt. He pulls it off with Shizune moving her legs to help her blonde crush. With the skirt completely free from her legs, the blonde then tosses it across the room. With that pesky skirt out of the way, he then sets his sights on Shizune's soaking wet black see-through panties. You mind Ne-chan? Naruto asked. Go ahead Naru-kun. Shizune said nervously. With her permission he then reaches for her panties and literally rips them off. Just as he did with his Taiyu-chan, he places the moist undergarments on his face and gives it a really big sniff. So how do I smell? Shizune asked with a blush. You smell great Ne-chan. The blonde answered with a husky voice that made Shizune shudder. So I wouldn't mind if we skip the foreplay. I'm just too wet right now and I don't think I can hold back any longer Naruto. The medic said. Naruto raised his eyebrow at this. Who knew Shizune would be so bold to get straight to the pounding? But Shizune, it wouldn't feel right unless one of us gives the other oral since it adds to the pleasure you know. Well, oh fine then, let me get rid of those pants of yours. Shizune said before getting off of the examination table. She pushes Naruto onto the table seating him on it and gets on her knees. Reaching for his zipper with shaky fingers. As quickly as she could she brings the zipper down and the teen's pants fall downward as if they were waiting to be freed. Looking at Naruto's bulge through his chibi-toad's boxers, she blushed at the sight. Oh my, Tayuya wasn't kidding, she thought as she proceeds to take the boxers off. Whoa, that's hot. Now Shizune was totally impressed. The sight of his meat scepter freed from the confines of the boxers made her almost cream herself as a gush of juices leaked out instantly. Naruto saw Shizune's eyes nearly pop out of her sockets. Shizune was just staring at his super rod. How do you like my Shizune? Naruto said shyly, scratching the back of his head. Shizune ed her lips before answering her favorite blonde teen. It's so hot Naruto-kun. She said before wrapping her hand around it, getting a hiss from the blonde. Urg, your hand feels good around it Shizune. Naruto ed as Shizune picked up the pace of her hand job. Oh, you like when your Ne-chan does this to you Naru-kun? Shizune teased as she then envelops the massive spear into her mouth. Despite being a virgin and never touching, seeing or even ing before she managed to get a good 6 inches in her mouth before she almost gagged, the magnificent was too much for her little needy mouth, so she pulled it out with a trail of saliva. Oh, I feel really ashamed of myself Naruto. It's too big for me to get in my throat. Shizune said sadly. Oh well, it's no problem Ne-chan, I'm not forcing you to me off. You can stop if you'd like. Naruto said, placing his hand on her cheeks. Shizune, however, wasn't about to let that setback get to her. For some reason her libido just skyrocketed and she wrapped both her hands around his massive and with her tongue began giving Naruto a furious hand-tongue job, making the boy squeal in pleasure. Whoa. Don't stop, Nei-chan. Naruto ed, placing both hands atop her head. Shizune picked up the pace, making the blonde lean back against the wall, his heart out. Hell, he didn't even care if anyone even heard him because his favorite medic was just stroking and his big with such efficiency. Shizune's onslaught continued for about 10 minutes before Naruto's starting twitching in her hands. It won't be long now until Shizune got to taste his cum, which was the tastiest thing in the world according to Tayuya. Oh god, I'm ready to launch. Gah! Naruto cried out in pure bliss. Shizune relinquished her grip on his and allowed her precious Naruto to stroke his on his own. She wanted to be the submissive one in this, and looking upwards she opens her mouth wide as Naruto was stroking his. After a few seconds the massive began spurting 10 cups worth of cum onto Shizune's mouth and Naruto, you'd better get that cum in my mouth. Shizune shouted. Alright. Oh god, here comes another one. I'm gonna blast. The blonde cried out in pure pleasure. Shizune got what she wanted as Naruto gently inserted his glory meat into her mouth. Shizune was met with such a powerful spurt the cum struck the back of her mouth that it hit her uvula, almost causing her to throw up. She resisted the urge to vomit and continued to bask in bliss. Soon enough Naruto had filled her mouth to the rim with his cum and she then swirled it around in her mouth like a cum shake and swallowed it all in one big gulp that you could see the mass pass through her neck. That was delicious, Naruto. Best thing I've ever tasted. Shizune inquired with a smile. I'm glad you liked it, Nei-chan. Are you ready for me to slam you? Naruto said, picking her up bridal style and placing her onto the table. Oh please just give it to me. And Naruto, I'm a virgin. Shizune said shyly as a blush formed on her face. Wah, really? You're like 31 and a virgin? Naruto shouted in surprise. Why yeah, and I have one request, Naru-kun. You want me to be gentle? No. Slam me please. I'm gushing wet from that lovely of yours. So please just obliterate my tight virgin. She shouted in desperation. Without warning Naruto just shoved his 17-inch spear and all of it was instantly buried inside his Nei-chan, breaking her hymen in one move. Eep! Shizune cried out in pain. Wrapping her hands around Naruto she began panting frantically. The pain of her hymen breaking was almost too much for her. Keep going. No, gentle. Hard. Complying, Naruto withdrew his so smoothly the pleasure from it caused Shizune to have her very first orgasm. Her firing out jets of female ejaculate coating Naruto's. Oh my Kami, you're filling me up. Come on Naruto, don't hold back. Shizune yelled out. Your legs funeral, Nei-chan, Naruto said as he began to mercilessly slam Shizune amazingly tight. Oh she's tight, maybe even tighter than Taiyu-chan. Naruto thought as he slams the medic into obliteration. Oh, you're the best. Don't stop until you come inside my little. Shizune shouted in pleasure. Hearing that Naruto picked up the pace and he was slamming her with so much force the table actually broke. The two of them land on the floor, but that didn't stop Naruto as the force of them falling sent his deeper into her body. His managed to pierce through her cervix, getting Shizune into a mind-blowing orgasm that made her literally scream in bliss. Oh, yes. She screamed as she squirted again. After roughly a 2-hour slamming, Naruto felt the cum dwelling within his ball sack boiling, ready to exit his body and spill into his lover's. Oh shit. Shizune, I'm about to cum. Naruto panted, picking up the pace. God yes. Me faster. Go faster until you cum. Shizune screamed. With his orgasm approaching he picked Shizune up and placed her back against the wall. Oh shit. Special delivery for Shizune. Naruto groaned out. With one last powerful thrust he finally delivered his long-awaited cum into Shizune's virgin hole. The force of which the cum shot out of him shot through her cervix and made its way into her uterus, with over 4 gallons of egg fertilizer pouring into her womb. Oh, that feels so warm. Shizune shouted before slumping in Naruto's arms. her head resting on his shoulders. The two of them panting while in each other's embrace. "So Nei-chan, how was your first time with me?" Naruto questioned. "Amazing, you blonde stud." Shizune got out between breaths. "Looks like you've totally improved from your last physical, sweetie." "Damn right I did," Naruto declared before setting Shizune down gently in the floor. "Alright Naruto, Kakashi is coming and I have to take his height and weight measurements, so this is where we end our alone time," Shizune said with a hint of disappointment. "Aw man, that silver-haired perverted Cyclops," Naruto grunted. Hospital lobby. About 30 minutes later, Naruto is seen walking into the lobby and heading out the front door. The doors open and in walks our silver-haired Jonin Kakashi Hatake. "Oh, what's up Naruto?" Kakashi greeted with his usual stoic voice. Up is a direction," Naruto said before taking off at light speed, leaving the Jonin sweat dropping. "He smells a bit weird," Kakashi said as he hears someone walking towards him. Turning, he sees Shizune limping towards him. One thing he noticed was one hand was placed over her belly. "Oh hey Shizu. Sorry Kakashi, I have other things to take care of, so we'll take your height measurements next time," Shizune said before limping faster to the washroom. Kakashi's face sported a deadpan look. "She smells weird too." Naruto and Yuya's apartment. After Naruto had concluded his brutal but oh so pleasurable time with Shizune, he went food shopping for his Taiyu-chan since they were low, so he thought why not. Carrying several bags home, he makes his way to his apartment door, and before he could reach for his key to unlock it, the door opens and an arm reaches out and drags him inside. Slamming the door shut, Yuya took the grocery bags from her boyfriend and tossed them into the kitchen. She then locked lips with her Naruto and both instantly got into a very heated makeout session. They engage in another tongue battle and Yuya quickly defeated him by pinning his tongue to the roof of his mouth. The two separate, and before Naruto could complain about his loss, Yuya gets on her knees and unzips his pants before pulling it along with her boxers downward, freeing his growing erection. "God, it's been only a few days since we've ed, but I got a new idea baby," she said in a lust-filled voice. Placing a loving kiss onto the bulbous head of the massive, she then gets up and walks over to the couch. Reaching down, she takes her booty shorts and her pink panties off. Getting onto the couch on her knees, she then leans forward and shakes her tia singly at her boyfriend. "Oh damn, that's hot as," Naruto whispered to himself. "Come one baby, take that glorious of yours and my cheeks," Yuya said in a voice Naruto had not heard from her before as she spreads her cheeks apart with her hands. Without hesitation, Naruto sprints over and grabs his. Taking a good look at his girlfriend, she couldn't help but smirk. Her anus was so cute. Pink and puckered up as if it was waiting for him to ravage that. "Don't think about shoving that up my yet babe, we'll do that later," Yuya said looking back at Naruto. "Oh, I will the living shit out of your cheeks, love," he said huskily before placing his in between the cheeks. "Damn, so warm," Naruto thought as he began thrusting his upwards. The rubbing against her valley at such a pace it was also rubbing Yuya's anus, adding more pleasure. "Hell yes. Keep going baby. My cheeks with that big," Yuya shouted in pleasure. The pleasure the two of them felt from the mutual masturbation was way too much for Naruto to handle, and soon enough he wasn't able to get a word out that he was coming. Reaching for Yuya's shirt, he lifts it up and soon enough he began to cum all over his girlfriend's back. "Can't hold it. Gotta blast," Naruto shouted as he released a blanket of cum onto the redhead's back. "Oh god, I didn't expect ass cracking to be this good," Yuya cried out as she froze in place, enjoying the feeling of the cum that covered her back. "Oh, damn," Naruto groaned as his orgasm died down. "Sorry I didn't warn you babe." Yuya turned around and planted a kiss on his lips. "No problem my shithead, just make sure you let me know next time or else I'll cut your off and use it as a dildo." "Hey," Naruto pouted angrily. "I'm serious," Yuya said with a playful grin. With that, the couple then went into the shower and began cooking dinner together. Outside at the door we see Tsunade peeking through the window enough where we can only see the top of her forehead and eyes. "Knock knock." The sound of the knocking immediately awoke Naruto and Tayuya. Grunting in pure annoyance, the couple charge out of bed and head straight for the door. They both open the door to be greeted by both Kakashi and Kurenai. What the two Jonin saw made them blush furiously. Kakashi was looking at Tayuya's while Kurenai was staring down Naruto's partially erected meat scepter with her mouth drooling. Holy! That's bigger than Asuma's and it's not even in full attention. Kurenai thought in awe. Why am I checking out a 16-year-old? The masked Jonin thought in embarrassment. What the do you want? The couple screamed out in unison. They were met only with silence. Well, Kakashi, unable to say anything at such a sight, shunshins out of there, leaving a blushing Kurenai behind to deal with the two teenagers. You two are. Kurenai managed to say. The two of them then slowly looked downwards and went wide-eyed when they saw their genitalia exposed. Excuse us, Kurenai-sensei. The two Chunin said in embarrassment, running into the house and putting some clothes on. Damn, who knew that Naruto has a big? Kurenai whispered to herself, blushing like crazy. I hope I get a chance for him to slide that up my. 30 minutes later, our two lovers went back to the door after they showered and welcomed Kurenai into their apartment. They treat her to breakfast, and after eating, Kurenai explained why she was there at 6 in the morning. So, Naruto, Tayuya, the reason I'm here is that I have something to tell you on orders from Lady Tsunade. Kurenai said. What? Is it, Kurenai-sensei? Tayuya asked nervously, with her grip on Naruto's hands getting tighter. Kurenai let out a drawn-out breath before clearing her throat. Ahem. Now listen you two, because I won't repeat myself, got it? She said, earning a nod from the Chunin. All right. This is all Lady Tsunade wanted to say to you two. Kakashi, me, and that Kusa Konoha chick Karen Akaryu are going on a vacation. The lover's face vaulted at that. Wait, we're going on a vacation? And so much for making it seem suspenseful, Kurenai. Naruto shouted through gritted teeth. Kurenai nodded with a smile before getting up to leave. Pack up for a week's worth, you two. We leave in an hour. With that, the red-eyed Jonin ran out the door, much to the annoyance of our couple. Man, since we're going on a vacation, we might as well make the most of it, right, Taiyu-chan? Naruto said sweetly to his girlfriend. I guess you're right, let's hurry up and get packing then. Tayuya said with a smile. Konoha main gate. Naruto and Tayuya make their way towards the main gate where they will meet Kakashi, Kurenai, and this Karen girl they'll be vacationing with. Hey look, they're already here waiting for us. Naruto said as they make their way towards the three. Kakashi didn't even have to look over his book to notice the couple coming their way. Made it on time, Naruto, Tayuya. He started speak. How are things between you two? He asked with his trademark eye smile. Great, Kakashi. Naruto answered before giving his girlfriend a peck on the cheeks. Behind Kakashi emerges some girl with red hair similar to Tayuya's. After the two lovers finished kissing, Naruto looked forward and his eyes nearly popped out of his sockets. What he saw was beauty. Wait, I can't think that Tayuya is the only redhead for me. Naruto thought, shaking his head. Oh, I don't believe you two have met before. Kurenai said, walking over. Naruto, Karen, Tayuya, Karen, Naruto, Tayuya, Karen. Hi Naruto. Karen greeted in a cute voice. She then looks at Tayuya to greet her, but the second the two redheads locked eyes, static formed between them, and the two of them then moved closer where their faces were mere inches away from each other in a heated stare down. Tayuya? Naruto asked. Karen. Kurenai and Kakashi said at the same time. Grr. The two redheads said as the static between their eyes becomes more noticeable. It's as if it'll shoot out and shock the other three around them. Well, who knew that redheads do this when they look at each other? Ika Blood read the first lesbian edition. Kakashi giggled. Hearing this, the two redheads look at him and Falcon punch the masked Jonin into space like a rocket launching. That masked bastard. The two redheads shouted in unison before they pout, looking away from each other. Dang. Who knew that was physically possible? Kurenai said in fear. You got that right, Kurenai. Naruto added. After a good 5 minutes, our characters finally hear what sounds like someone falling from the sky. Ah! Kakashi screamed as he fell down from his launching landing with his head hitting the ground, causing a small earthquake. A sleeping Izumo and Kotetsu were suddenly awoken by the magnitude 2 earthquake Kakashi caused. Jumping out from their seats, they then hysterically run around in circles screaming, "Ah, Iwagakure is attacking." Our heroes just stare at them, sweat dropping, and after a few minutes the two Chunin guards crash into each other face first, knocking each other out cold. Well, that was entertaining. Tayuya laughed before taking out a camera and taking pictures of the two unconscious forms. Kakashi pulls himself out of the dirt and shakes his head to regain his composure. What happened? He asked, looking around. Nothing. You just had another Kakashi moment. Kurenai said, pushing him out of the main gate with the three teenagers following suit. AAAAAALLLLLRIIIIIGHT. Land of hot springs, here we come. Naruto declared at the top of his lungs before taking off into the distance at such a speed that would have made Sonic jealous. 4 hours, hot spring country. After 4 hours of walking, our 5 characters finally venture into hot spring country. They then make their way towards the Hano Hot Spring Resort, where they will be staying at and check into their rooms. Naruto and Tayuya obviously shared a room. Kakashi got his own while Kurenai and Karen got theirs. Before they all departed for their room, however, Tayuya pulled Kurenai to the side and began whispering into her ear. Naruto, Kakashi and Karen took notice of this, and when Tayuya and Kurenai turned back, they gave Naruto seductive winks before continuing discussing whatever it was they were discussing. The other three sweat dropped. Naruto, what do you think they're talking about? Kakashi asked as he whips out his book to read. Naruto just shrugged. Honestly, I wouldn't know, Kakashi, but by the looks and giggles they're giving each other, it's obviously perverted. Karen just ignored them all and just went to sit down to wait for Kurenai so they can go into their room. Kurenai walks into her room with Karen right behind her. Setting their things on the bed, they then sit on their beds to discuss the real reason why Lady Tsunade had them vacate in hot spring country. So Karen, what do you think of Naruto? Handsome guy, huh? Kurenai asked the younger woman. Karen blushed and scratched her cheeks, looking the other way. He sure is, Kurenai, but isn't he with that Tayuya girl? Yes, he is, but you know that he has his own harem now since he's restoring his mother's clan, right? Why not make a move on him? He is the most desired man in our village. But what about Tayuya? Does she know about this? I mean, if I had a boyfriend, no way I'm sharing him with other women. Karen said with a cute pout, and you saw what happened the moment we looked at each other. Yeah, I saw. But listen, Karen, I heard from Lady Tsunade that Tayuya does not mind at all sharing the boy. As a matter of fact, they are both okay with it and want to have many children. Tayuya even said it herself to me earlier that having a crap load of nieces and nephews to spoil doesn't sound bad either. Karen blushed at what was being said to her. Holy shit, Naruto wants to get with a lot of women. And his girlfriend is okay with sharing. Yeah. So anyway, Karen, Tayuya wanted where we can end up alone with Naruto, and she told me for us to decide who gets him first. Kurenai explained further. So first or second, Karen? Karen was too busy going through several perverted thoughts in her head. Damn, what should she do to that blonde hunk? Kurenai noticed the redhead spacing out. Reaching her hand over, she waves it in front of her, effectively snapping her out of that little la-la land she was in. Huh? What? Karen, I said we should choose who gets Naruto first. You or me, him? Oh, well, I guess I'll take him first. Alright then, guess I'll wait for my turn then. Kurenai said, getting up. Make sure to not tire him out, alright? I'm not sure about that. Karen said with a wink. -1 hour later at the male hot spring. Naruto is seen walking into the changing room with a towel in hand. Setting the towel down onto a table, he then proceeds to strip out of his clothes. Placing his clothes inside a locker and locking it, he wraps the towel around his private region. Oh man, this is gonna feel so damn good. He exclaimed in excitement. moving the flap out of the way he enters the open area where the hot spring is. Sighing in happiness, he places a toe into the water to check its temperature. Nodding in content, he then walks into the water until he is in knee-deep water. Satisfied, he then proceeds to sit in the water to where only his head is visible at the surface. Ah, this is so good. I should thank Ba-chan when we get back because I've needed this for a long time. Naruto thought as a smile forms on his face. In the locker room we see the door open and in walks Karen in only a towel. Hee hee. With my natural good looks and Y curves, this'll sure get Naruto. She snickered before dashing towards the entryway to the male hot spring. Moving the curtain out of the way, she drops her towel. Well, this will do it, she shouted, getting Naruto's attention. Looking up, Naruto's eyes nearly rocketed out of his sockets at the sight before him. Standing at the doorway was Karen in a red bikini. Huh, what will do? Oh damn, you look well, Karen. Naruto said nervously. What are you doing here though? This isn't a co-ed hot spring. Taking of her glasses, Karen places the tip of the arms on her lips with a large blush visible on her face. I was thinking that maybe we can sit around and talk, she said shyly. Sure, I don't mind, Naruto said as she takes a seat next to him. After 30 minutes of making small talk, Karen thought it was time to be blunt with the blonde. Alright Naruto, I'm gonna be blunt with you. I'm really horny and I want a taste of that so-called glorious of yours that I heard about from your girlfriend and Kuranai. She told me she caught a glimpse of you while Yuya explained to me how your normal sessions go. I want to see for myself, she said, crawling up to said blonde to where their faces are mere inches from each other. Let the begin. Wow, who knew girls are this eager? How about you answer some questions for me first, Karen? Naruto asked as an arm reaches for Karen's legs and begins rubbing it. Sure, ask me anything, you beast, Karen whispered into his ear, the inness within her voice immediately making his schlong stand at full attention. And by that I mean Naruto's flaccid literally shot straight upwards like a musket, firing its lead ball, hitting Karen in the chin and knocking her glasses off into the water. Oh yeah, it also knocked the towel off of Naruto, exposing his glorious to her as well. Squealing in surprise, Karen reached into the water where her glasses had landed. Wiping them off, she proceeds to put them on and was gasping in shock. Holy shit. Yuya wasn't around. Look at the size of that thing, Karen thought with a massive blush, her near instantaneously moistened as her juices leaked out like a spigot. Goddamn Naruto, why is yours so huge? She asked in shock. Naruto chuckled at the question before walking over to Karen. Bending over, he places a hand on her cheek and gives her a peck on the lips. Because I'm God's gift, Karen, he replied. Well, care to give me some of that monster? Karen teased as she pushes Naruto onto the steps on the pool. Show me what you can do, Karen-chan. Giving him a wink, she performs a hand seal and out of her hands 2 chakra chain links that wraps around his arms and basically handcuffs him. Whoa, what the air you doing, Karen-chan? Naruto cried out. Oh yeah, forgot to say that I like to be in charge of things, Naruto. So be quiet and let me have my way with you, Karen said seductively. Oh. Okay then. Let's see what you got, Naruto said as he began sweating bullets. In her lips, she reaches downwards and grasps his with both hands, barely wrapping around his incredible girth. Looking at Naruto, she winks and proceeds to her lips. Bending her head downwards, she his urethra, earning a from the blonde before giving the throbbing glands a slow and long. The pleasurable feeling of the redhead's caused Naruto to whimper in pleasure and squirm. Smirking at his suffering, Karen then opens her mouth as wide as she could and places the head into her mouth. Closing her lips, she then inches her way down the shaft while it making the blonde bastard whimper much louder in sheer pleasure. Oh damn, Karen, that feels so good, please don't stop, Naruto cried out as he continued squirming. Hearing his words, she continues to inch her way down the shaft and in due time her nose was pressing against his belly. The entire 17-incher finally in her mouth with at least 9 of it poking down her throat. She then begins humming as hard as she can, sending vibrations emanating throughout Naruto's gigantic, making our blonde Gaki literally scream his heart out. Holy shit. Oh Karen, keep doing that. Naruto cried out in pure bliss, the sheer vibrations driving him insane. Deciding that vibrating his via hums were enough, she then pulls the whole damn prick out of her gullet with an audible pop and a quarter-gallon's worth of her saliva to spill out and coat his wiener in the process. Did you like that, Naruto? She asked while gently stroking the prick. Damn right I did, but can you undo the chains, Karen? He asked. Shaking her head, she then increases the speed of her hand job, making the blonde gasp at the pleasure it was giving him. Holy shit. Naruto screamed as Karen engulfed the into her mouth. Karen muffled as she bobbed her head at such incredible speeds that Naruto was panting like crazy. After about 5 minutes of furious blow, handjobs, Naruto felt the recognizable feeling of the semen in his testicle get all riled up. Gritting his teeth, he groans as the cum slowly makes its way up from his sack, his shaft, and then. I'm gonna blow. Karen got what she wanted but wasn't expecting Naruto's ejaculations to be this powerful. She was totally unprepared as the cum shot out like a musket ball and she was actually pushed back several feet. Gasping in surprise, she watches Naruto's spurt out cum at such velocity that it was practically hitting her face, and after about 3 more spurts his orgasm dies down and Karen is left a mess of cum. Holy damn, that's some orgasm, she said as she uses a finger to scoop up the cum mass on her face and boobies, putting the delicate sperm into her mouth. She sighed in content as she cleaned herself completely. Delicious. I've never tasted cum before, but I can easily say that will be the best I will ever have, Naruto, she said with a smile. Naruto had finally recovered from his orgasm. Well, I'm glad you like it, Karen. You'll get more in the coming days if you wish, you know. Oh, I plan to have your cum for breakfast, lunch and dinner for the rest of my life. Getting up, she walks over to Naruto and goes to straddle him. Reaching downwards with one hand, she positions the still erected and places it at her lovely wet orifice. You like virgins, Naruto? She asked. Yeah, I do. Tighter pussies only make me want to you harder to loosen that vagina of yours up, Karen, he said with his trademark grin. Then you better me so ing hard that when you cum in my virgin the force of your ejaculations better send me launching upwards. Leaning over to give Naruto a kiss on the lips, she then sits on the literally impaling all 17 inches into herself, breaking her hymen. Gasping in pain, her face scrunches up at the feeling of her hymen being broken. Karen, you okay? Naruto asked, obviously very worried about her. Yeah, I just need a second, she reassured as she begins to lift herself and sit down repeatedly. After a few thrusts from Naruto combined with her manually lifting herself, the feelings of her hymen being broken was soon replaced by intense pleasure as she began to very loudly. Karen, you're so tight. Naruto shouted through pants. But can you please undo these restraints, please? Sure, Naruto. Karen panted as he performs her hand seal, making the restraints vanish, and the second they did, Naruto pulled her off his and basically forced her against the wall of the hot spring. Oh, dominating are we? You can't dominate Naruto Uzumaki just like that, Karen. I'm going to have to really show you the error of your ways, he said in a whisper. Grabbing her hips, he just literally shoved all 17 inches of his spear and impaled Karen with so much force she screamed her lungs out, feeling her cervix and uterus get poked in one move. Holy mothering shit, Karen cried out as Naruto began to pump into with such powerful force he threatened to break down the wall that separated the male and female hot springs from view of one another. Don't stop, you whale-ed bastard. Show me what Uzumakis are capable of. Your funeral, Naruto said as he picked up the pace of his thrusts, literally shaking the wall with each pump. Oh god, I'm gonna see cum. Kyaaa. Karen screamed out as she experienced her very first orgasm that saw her juices fire out of her body like a literal waterfall, coating Naruto's. The combined feeling of her juices in her vaginal walls clamping down onto his that it felt like the circulation was being cut off did it for him. Karen Chan. Naruto screamed as he felt his fire torrent after torrent of spermatozoa into her needy. Kya, yeah, Karen cried out as she felt her uterus become flooded with cum. AWWWWWGHHHHH. Naruto groaned as his orgasm began to die down. However, just as his orgasm had subsided. Wait! Here comes another wave. Naruto shouted as he fired off a rocket blast of cum that pushed Karen off sending her crashing through the wooden wall. Naruto was so busy having orgasmic spasms that it would take a few minutes for him to notice what happened. Looking at the hole in the wall, he walks through it and spots a tired out and barely conscious Karen floating in the water. Her eyes staring into space as her hands were placed on her belly. Hee hee. Sorry about that, Karen-chan. He laughed, scratching the back of his head. That was amazing, she said in a quiet voice as her body was experiencing mini orgasms that made her twitch. Take me back to my room, Naru-kun. Heh. I hope your first time was worth it. Naruto said as he picked her up and proceeds to walk out of the hot springs. Hotel bar. 2 hours later at around 8 p.m. Naruto is seen at the hotel's bar with Kakashi and Captain Yamato, who happened to be sent by Tsunade to join them on their vacation. Since he had a few days off, he accepted, and the three of them were having a great time drinking shots. Tayuya and Karen were in town while Kuranai was back in her room doing her own thing. Gulp. Ah, that hit the spot, Naruto said as he burps. Damn right, Yamato agreed. Kakashi said, not taking his eyes off his orange book. Naruto looked at his watch. Seeing the time, he decided to see Kuranai to see if she was alright since she was holed up in her room all damn day. Hey Yamato, Kakashi, I'm going to check on Kuranai. She hasn't left her room at all today. Yamato took another shot before looking at Naruto. Alright then, don't take too long. Getting up from his chair, Naruto exits the bar and heads into the area where all the rooms are. Walking through several hallways, he finds Kuranai in Karen's room and knocks on it. Kuranai, you in there? Is everything alright? Naruto asked. Come in, Naruto, Kuranai said from the other side. Reaching for the doorknob, he turns it and opens the door. Stepping into the room, he sees that it is dimly lit with candles everywhere. Whoa, what's going on here? He walks further into the room and looks at the bed to see Kuranai's clothes scattered all over it. He sees her panties and the blonde bastard couldn't resist and picks it up to give it a where the vagina would have been. Oh damn, that tastes great, he thought before he felt someone wrap their arms around him and reach into his pants, grabbing his flaccid in one move. Let the second begin. My Naruto, I should have known you'd be a pervert like Jiraiya-sama. A voice spoke into his ear. K Kuranai, Naruto ed as she begins stroking his, making it harder by the second. How does my residue taste, honey? It, was all Naruto managed to say before he was lost in pleasure from the handjob. Answer me now, Naruto, Kuranai ordered as she stopped her handjob, making Naruto groan in annoyance. It tastes lovely, Kuranai, Naruto cried out. That's a good boy, remember to answer me or else I'll let you suffer with blue balls. Tonight I'm having you slam my into submission, got it? Kuranai then spun Naruto around and shoved him onto the bed. Yanking his pants off, she got a good look at the massive. Wow, Asuma. Sorry about this. I've never seen so much on one man before, Kuranai thought as she felt her get wet. Reaching for the wiener schnitzel, she wastes no time in engulfing the massive organ and managed to easily get the holing prick into her mouth and down her throat all the way to her stomach. Tastes so much better than Asuma, Kuranai thought as she furiously ed Naruto off with so much skill that a drool puddle was forming in between Naruto's legs. Oh my god, Kur-chan, you're wonderful at this, Naruto ed. Hearing that made Kuranai all the more horny, and she used both her hands to grasp the huge and picked up her pace that made Naruto lose his mind. Oh yes, Naruto cried out as he grabbed the sheets. I wonder how much you cum, sweetie, Kuranai thought as she began to bob her head at the same time. I'm gonna, Naruto whimpered. After about another minute of Kurenai's special handjob, Naruto could barely contain the sheer amount of cum that had built up in his scrotum. I'm gonna cum a lot. Believe it. Naruto screamed as he grabbed Kurenai's head with both hands and practically shoved his into her mouth as he came. Kurenai's mouth was filled to the brim with a whole gallon's worth. Reacting quickly, Kurenai reached down to squeeze Naruto's oversized green beans, which prompted more cum to spurt out of his. Hell yeah! Naruto shouted, feeling his balls being played with. Naruto's orgasm began to die down, and before Kurenai could swallow the delicious cum in her mouth, Naruto had already leapt out of her grasp and basically grabbed her and threw her onto the bed on all fours. Running towards the other side of the room, Naruto then sprinted full speed towards Kurenai. Before she could protest, Naruto had thrusted his hips forward with enough force to send him launching through the air. He speared into Kurenai with so much power that her head banged against the wall, leaving an imprint of her forehead in it. Naruto. Be gent. AUWWWGHHHH. Kurenai ed out, sounding like a goat being castrated, with some of the cum that was in her mouth spilling out. Naruto took no time being gentle and instead found himself just flat out in Kurenai that each time his hips met her lovely cheeks, she was jerked forward with her forehead colliding with the wall. She finally managed to swallow and began harif. Dear kami, I've never been this full before. Me harder. You know it, Kurenai, Naruto said as he picked up his pace. The sight of Kurenai's cheeks jiggling with each shove made him smirk. SSS, so much bigger and better than Asuma. I don't want any other man now. After 30 minutes of super slamming, Naruto felt another orgasm approaching. He picked up his thrust, causing Kurenai to squeal so loud it sounded like a Japanese schoolgirl. URG. Here it comes, Kurenai. Take it. Take Uzumaki cum deep into your puss. With one final thrust, Naruto growled literally and flooded Kurenai to the max. Oh yes. Kurenai shouted as she felt the warm semen flood her vagina, pierce her cervix and enter her womb. Ah! Naruto groaned out as he continued to cum about, say 4 gallons of cum into the jonin. In Naruto, I got something for the both of us. Kurenai said before performing a hand seal. What is it, Kuren? Yeah. Kurenai had performed a genjutsu that prolonged their orgasms for what felt like days. Holy! I'm coming in overload. Naruto screamed out. Get me pregnant. Give me the baby Asuma couldn't give me. -10 minutes later in real time. After what seemed like an eternity, Kurenai was too weak and barely conscious from her orgasm to maintain the genjutsu, and eventually it was broken. We see Naruto and her idly asleep on the bed, snoring like pigs. Luckily they weren't able to see the door to their room close. On the other side of it we see Yuya and Karen laughing like crazy. Oh man, he definitely showed her. Yuya said between laughs, I was hoping to get babe to her since she broke up with Asuma a while back and now she is stress-free. Damn right, Karen agreed. When I met her at the Hokage's office when I first got here, she wouldn't stop complaining about having a good man in her life. Shit, you're telling me. Yuya said before they walked down the hallway to sleep in Naruto's room since Karen won't be sleeping in hers. One thing we notice is that Karen is limping pretty hard. Uzushiogakure at around 2 a.m. After a week at the Hano Hot Spring Resort, Kakashi, Kurenai, Naruto, Yuya and Karen, joined by Yamato, had returned from their vacation. However, the second they stepped back into Konoha, several Anbu took Naruto to Lady Tsunade for an urgent mission. It's a dark and quiet night and Naruto is seen hopping through the trees in Uzushiogakure. The kind of mission Tsunade summoned him to perform a search and rescue mission. A girl was kidnapped from her house in the Takigakure by that pedophilic snake Orochimaru. The leader Shibuki sent a message to Lady Tsunade asking for her to send someone to rescue the girl. Since most other Chunin and Jonin were busy doing their own missions, she looked to Naruto the moment he came back, and well, here he is in the Uzushio. Landing at a small beach near the ocean, Naruto pulls out a scroll from his backpack and unrolls it. It contains the client's request, how the kidnapped girl looks like. Apparently he had been sighted in Uzushio, and well, here he is on the look for our missing girl. TCH, that snake pedo is forever kidnapping little girls. He needs to cut that shit out. Naruto growled before putting the scroll away. Alright, I just have to find this girl. Red hair that's about shoulder length with 2 strands framing her face and her teeth fangs. Has heterochromia with her right eye gold and her left is green. Got it, Naruto said before jumping away. After about 30 minutes of searching the beaches and nearby forest, Naruto spots what looks like light coming from a cove a few meters offshore. Huh, that snake bastard must be in there. Hope the girl is okay, Naruto said to himself as he proceeds to dive into the water and swims towards the cove. He eventually swims his way into the cove and gets on dry land. Emerging from the water, Naruto gets on all fours and shakes himself dry like a dog would. Aw man, I hate swimming, Naruto groaned before making his way deeper into the cove's interior. After about 10 minutes of venturing through the dark and moist interior, he stops and leans against the wall when he swore he heard someone laughing. Perking his ears up, he listens intently to see if there is anyone nearby. Roughly a few seconds later, he hears someone speaking. Kukuku, with this girl's body I shall finally have the Jongu technique. No one will be able to stop me once I have it. The voice said maniacally. Yep, that's definitely Orochimaru. Time to show him how much of a bump he is, Naruto thought as he summons a shadow clone to confront Orochimaru head on. Naruto low crawls into the room out of Orochimaru's sight. Since Snake was on his knees caressing the girl's body, the blonde could easily sneak around the bastard without being noticed if he was quiet enough. Turning to face the clone, he gives him a nod and the clone draws several kunai and hurls it at the snake mofo. Orochimaru said as he looks up. Seeing the kunai coming right at him, he effortlessly catches them all in between his fingers. Taking a good look at the figure that attacked him, he couldn't help but feel utter joy. Kukukukuku, well, if it isn't Naruto Uzumaki. I presume you're here to rescue this girl. The Sannin snickered as he tosses the kunai back at the clone. Orochimaru then extends his tongue out and the slimy pink appendage lashes out towards the clone. The clone tries to move out the way, but he is too slow and the tongue coils around his